Next, let's queer up gay culture. It's 1994. 2024. Do we still want to keep gay bars gay? It's a prevalent issue these days. Spaces originally intended for queer individuals, celebrated for their inclusivity and vibrant atmosphere, often find themselves inundated with cisgender, heterosexual attendees. Gay bars, historically since the 1969 Stonewall riots, were a place of safety for the LGBTQ+ community. A viral post on Twitter shared by a user talked about a recurring pattern the user has observed. The post mentions the evolution of LGBTQ spaces. First, queer individuals create their own spaces. Then, these spaces gain popularity. Then, straight cisgender women begin attending for a sense of safety and enjoyment. Following them come straight cisgender men to pursue women. As a result, many posters said the LGBTQ+ community feels displaced and unsafe in these spaces, and then the LGBTQ+ individuals stop frequenting or lose ownership of the space. Danny also clarifies that he welcomes, quote, allies who are respectful of our spaces, end quote, and the criticism is directed at those who are not. Needless to say, many commented on the post, sharing their suggestion on how we can keep the gay bars gay. Some suggested making the place nerdier. Some suggested running gay porn to keep straight people at a distance. And one person said, quote, this is where leather, kink spaces, queer spaces have succeeded. We are so unapologetically our queer selves that it's harder for straight people to really enjoy, end quote. Though all these suggestions are entertaining, the issue being discussed is felt deeply by many community members. One question that arises is, do we still want to keep gay bars gay in 2024? Well, I'm actually very grateful that I got to do this story because a couple weeks ago I was in New Orleans at a literary festival where I moderated a panel on a series of recently published, more show and tell here, recently published books on the subject. So there's Gregor Mattson's Who Needs Gay Bars. There's Lucas Hildebrand's The Bars Are Ours. There's even the wonderful Krista Burton's book, Moby Dyke, which is about when she traveled across the country seeing the last of remaining lesbian bars. And then my own darn husband wrote a book about the history of gay bars in Chicago, and his new book, which will be about the history of gay bars in South Florida, is coming out later this year. So the point of that is that all of a sudden there is this crazy interest in the gay bars. There's books being written, there's a documentary about the last of the remaining women's bars. So it's in the zeitgeist, people are very much aware of it. So the thing is, like this person said, as long as the patrons are respectful of the space, then I think that it's okay. But more than anything, to answer that question, who needs gay bars, I would say read these books. They're full of really interesting stories and information. And I think everybody else has something.
I feel like every time you come here, you always bring these book suggestions, and I just add to the list. Like, it keeps piling on.
It's the journalist in me. But yes, I think it's an important subject. I think our bars are a very important subject.
Yeah, we need queer space. We still do, because the rest of the world is gentrifying everything around us. I mean, gay neighborhoods are dying, gay bars are dying. They're being replaced by...
There's a sort of that 6 steps of expelling LGBTQ plus space, that literally took place over the last 30 years in South Beach. In the 90s, it was, in the 90s, it was gay. Saatchi lives there. It was male models, Abercrombie and Fitch, it was everything is gay. And then then it becomes cool. The minute that MTV hold their VMAs there, it becomes super cool. bar owners there realized that instead of selling, vodka cran to the queers, they can just sell bottles of bottle service to, to unsuspecting heteros for, $500 a pop for a bottle of Absolute. And then eventually the price of the rent goes up. They get, queer spaces got expelled, and now Miami Beach has, they still have Palace, they still have a Twist, but otherwise, it's that zone for queer people. It's not a queer space anymore.
But that's the history of gay neighborhoods. Gay people move into really crappy, rundown neighborhoods.
Yeah.
They gentrify it, they fix it up, and then straight people move in, and they can no longer afford to.
Well, so I'm actually kind of curious though. Like, how do they know who is or isn't queer? Because sometimes I feel like you can't really tell just by looking at someone. Like, for example, if someone were to look at like me and my girlfriend, like they'd be like, oh, that's like a heterosexual couple, and they wouldn't even blink twice about it. But we're queer. We're absolutely queer. But like, how do we know who is or isn't queer? Is it the way that they present themselves?
Are you talking about in the bars?
Yeah, within the bars.
I think that because the idea that women were going there initially because they felt safe, they weren't being hit on all the time. And when a man shows up in a bar, and he's not a gay bar, and he's not hitting on other gay men,
I see,
but he's hitting on straight women, I think that's the indication.
And I think that's the important reason for having queer space, because you can assume that you're surrounded by queer people.
That's the safe space.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I guess like I just also don't want to erase like bisexual people like in the space either, because they could be straight women, but they could also be bisexual women entering that space looking maybe for another partner there.
I think also this is the proper moment to highlight the need for intentional spaces, and also the need to own the building, own the real estate that we occupy. It is not lost on many of us in the community that we've watched many spaces where we frequented that, and then only for them to leave, and then us to learn that we didn't even own that space. We didn't even own that building. And these are the problems that that come up in the community. And it's also connected to housing. It's connected to all of these different intersections and avenues that we deal with on the daily as queer people. And we just need to expand more and become more intentional about our spaces.
Absolutely.
And also more intentional about owning our spaces, like community land trust and things of that nature. Like, we really need to expand the conversation outside of just the bar, drinking. And I get where it came from. That's where our rights and things were fought for, and where we started off.
Where meetings were held.
Now we're moving past that era. We're moving into a new society, a new era. We need to really expand this conversation.
But that's what happened in Chicago on North Halsted, which is the gay strip, was that the bar owners bought the building. That was the difference. It was no longer, they were no longer paying rent to straight owners. They were buying the businesses. And that's a big deal.
Absolutely. And I also feel like it's important to also establish certain boundaries within these spaces too. Because even within these spaces, like, we still have transphobia happening. We still have like a lot of racism happening. We need to establish boundaries and be like, hey, like, XYZ is not okay. And if you do this in our establishment, you're out.
I think it's important to know that there's also a slight bit of over-exaggerated panic in the, like, are gay bars disappearing? There are, yes, there's some are,
but they're also opening too. There's actually a new one in Wynwood opening.
I think this is speaking more outside of our bubble, because we live in a South Floridian bubble. I think this is speaking more towards like the I think we reported on this months ago, where the only lesbian bar is shutting down in Texas.
Yes.
And then other places where they don't see many queer people, and the only gathering hole is this water hole. And now people are flooding in because now it's cool to be gay now, or they're trying to see what the media portrays of us, or they're trying to get that experience. And so they're flooding these places in these rural places that we usually, we city.
It's our own,
other places where they don't have as many safe spaces to go to or to frequent.
One final point to make on this, I really like the observation. Intentional space, I think, is absolutely to the point here. But one of the observations made was how straight cis women come to feel safe, and then we get replaced by straight cis men coming. And what happens? That place starts to suffer from the heteronormative masculine view, and that's what chases us away. So what it is it's the violent masculine space that's been created that's keeping everyone away, but then still taking over.
Absolutely.